Hello, everyone. Welcome back. We are on page 207 of Jack's run. Now, where we left off, Jack is on the roof and he is sliding down, and that's where it left off. Joanne is in the house with Raphael, possibly coming to see her. Sam and his mom and Dr. Pavlov are being led down to the jamboree, and they've been allowed that, even though Sam's got a wheelchair that he doesn't actually need, but it's part of their cover. And Smitty and their dad are hanging out near the airplane. So what's going to happen? Jack, his plan is to get Joanne and hopefully get to the plane and be a stowaway. If he can't get her, he is going to be a stowaway himself because he knows right now if he is caught, he is going to be killed. So what is going to happen? I mean, there was a lot of gear that they picked up that hasn't been used or brought in, and a lot of things have been set up, but I'm still wondering. Sam got in touch with El Sereno, the Watcher. What is going on? So, starting on page 207. So where we ended, this idea was good in theory, but fell apart in practice. As soon as he, being Jack, eased himself onto the steep pitch, he started to slide. He lunged for the peak, missed it by a good 2 feet, and realized he was going to drop. He was going to be launched. He flipped over on his back, preferring to see where he was going. A second later, he ran out of roof. 207, chapter 45. Snake Eyes had dragged Joanne around to the back of the big house, through the kitchen and past a half-dozen women preparing food, who didn't even look up from their work as they went by. She pulled Joanne into a narrow hallway, then pushed her through a door leading to a set of steep stairs. At the bottom was a media room with at least 24 comfortable chairs facing a large white viewing screen. She hit a button and the screen rolled up, revealing a hidden door. She pushed Joanne inside and slammed the door behind her. The lock snapped into place. The room was pitch black. Joanne felt along the wall. In several frantic minutes, fumbled into the light switch with a sigh of relief. The suite was similar to the one below the barn, but smaller, with only one bedroom. It was decorated in the same cowboy motif, which reminded her of Raphael and his promise for the visit. She shuddered with dread and revulsion. If only Jack hadn't gotten claustrophobic, she thought. She shook the ill feeling off. He couldn't help himself, and if she hadn't tried out for American Superstar, they would both be in LA right now. She hoped he would be headed to Mendoza and not do something stupid like trying to rescue her. Mendoza was their only chance, but if they caught him on the way or in town, she didn't want to think about that. She went into the kitchen and opened the cupboards. Like the cupboards in the room beneath the barn, they were well stocked with food. If she was careful, she could survive for weeks. Survive, she thought. That's what I need to do. Survive long enough for someone to figure out where I am and rescue me. Keep the panic down. Think. I'll go back to my original plan. Block the door so they can't get in like Jack did when he trapped the woman in the bathroom. What did Jack say? They'll cut the power in water? I can't survive the dark. I can survive the dark, but I can't live without water. She filled every container in the cupboard with water, and it was on her way to the bathroom to fill the bathtub when the door opened. She let out an involuntary shriek. Raphael smiled at her reaction. Snake Eyes regarded her grimly through purple contacts, which were scarier than the previous pair. Sit down, Raphael said. Joanne fought back her eyes in panic by taking a deep breath and letting it out slowly. If she were to survive, she would have to keep her wits about her. She would have to think. She sat down on the chair rather than the sofa, so Raphael could not sit next to her. The woman went into the kitchen and came out with a pitcher filled with water. Thirsty? She said with an evil smile. Joanne did not respond. Or perhaps, the woman continued, you were thinking of blocking the door from the inside and staying here until someone came to your rescue? Joanne frowned, but it wasn't because they had discovered her plan. She was angry because she should have blocked the door first and waited on the water. Jack would have thought of that. She looked at Raphael. He was still smiling, and she noticed for the first time he was carrying something draped over his arm. It looked like a red dress. I understand, he drawled, that your voice is as pretty as you are. Joanne shrugged. The woman walked back into the kitchen. Joanne could hear her emptying the water into the sink. Do you sing country? Raphael asked. Joanne stared at him. Why? She asked. We got ourselves a little situation here, he said. We're having ourselves a jamboree down in Durango, and our entertainment didn't arrive. Thought you'd like to fill in for them. You've got to be kidding, Joanne said. Raphael shook his head. The way I figure it, he said, it would be a sight better down in Durango than shut up all here in your lonesome. He had a point, but she couldn't believe that after kidnapping and threatening to kill him, he would think she would actually sing for him and his dope-dealing friends. He was crazier than he looked. Well, he said. No, It was out before she knew what she was saying. A frown crossed Raphael's face. Figured you might feel that way, and that's a shame. You see, he looked at Snake Eyes, who had walked back into the room. We have a brother. The smile returned to Raphael's face. Joanne looked at Snake Eyes. She looked annoyed. Where is he? Safe, Raphael said. For now. We have him locked up under the barn. Thought it best to keep you two separated. Zita was all for killing him. Truth be told, I was too. But then I started thinking about the jamboree. Where did you find him? Joanne asked, wondering if they really did find him. He didn't make it far, Raphael said. I want to see him. Raphael shook his head. You have yourself two choices. You sing for my friends, or I send Zita to take care of your brother. And believe me, she's real eager to get that job done. And if I sing, then your brother will live, Raphael said. But you must cooperate. No trying to get away. No telling my guests who you really are. Zita will be keeping an eye on you every second. If you mess up, she'll kill both of you. Can I see him after I sing? Joanne asked. Depends on how you sing. You do a good job, we might arrange a reunion. He dropped the red dress on her lap. Slip it on. Chapter 46. It was like stepping back in time. Durango not only looked and sounded like the Old West, it smelled like the Old West. Or what Patricia imagined the Old West smelled like. Wood smoke, tobacco, mud, dung, sawdust, pungent, but not altogether unpleasant. As Sam had anticipated, they were searched before being led into the town, but the guards did not find the wheelchair's two-way radio or the taser gun concealed in Dr. Pavlov's medical bag. With some difficulty, Patricia pushed Sam's wheelchair across the rutted street to the boardwalk, where the pushing got easier. Sam switched on the two-way radio and said quietly, Do you copy? Loud and clear, Neil's voice answered into the earpiece. We're in Durango, heading to the saloon for the meeting. Stand by. Roger. Neil looked at Smitty in relief. So far, so good, Smitty said. They were dressed in assault vests, night vision goggles, throat radios that could be heard at a whisper, stocking caps, everything camouflaged, including their faces. The plan was simple. Sam, Patricia, and Pavlov would subdue Raphael during their one-on-one meeting with him. They would find out where Jack and Joanne were being held. Neil and Smitty would free the kids and take them back to the jet. When the kids were safely on board, Patricia, Sam, and Pavlov would leave Durango, join them on the jet, and they would take off. As simple as the plan was, Neil knew that a lot could still go wrong. They would have less than a half an hour with Raphael in the room before his security people got suspicious. The Asnars did not waste time in meetings. The other problem was they had no idea when Sam would be called into the room. Neil hoped it would be a little later in the evening so he and Smitty would have time to reconnoiter. He wanted more than one escape route back to the jet in case they ran into trouble. We got everything? Smitty asked. Neil took one last look around and saw Commander If between the pilot and the co-pilot seat. He put the figure in his pocket. Chapter 47. Raphael did not have Jack, although he could have. Had he or any of his people wandered around to the side of the building, Jack had landed on his back, hit his head, and everything went black. It was a good 5 or 6 minutes before his eyelids began to flicker open. At first he thought he was below his bedroom window at his old house, where he had taken his famous leap in his sister's red tights and tied the sheet around his neck like a superhero. But where was the grape arbor? He felt his neck. Where was the sheet? He felt his legs. Where were the tights? He tried to sit up, but the pain was too intense. He lay still and stared at the bright stars in the night sky. Slowly, it all came back to him. He grabbed a handful of what he had landed on and brought it up to his face. Sawdust. He had landed on a pile of sawdust from the barrels. He tried to sit up again and made it this time, but it felt like every bone in his body was broken. He had to get up to the house. Joanne was there. Shakily, he got to his feet and realized that something really was broken, or at least badly sprained. His right ankle was the color of a ripe plum and twice as big as his left. He took a tender step and sucked in his breath. It was bad, but he could walk. Chapter 48. Patricia, Sam, and Dr. Pavlov sat around an old table in the Asnar saloon. The floor was covered in sawdust and the air was thick with smoke. The jamboree was in full swing. People were drinking, playing cards, and practicing their quick draw out on the street. Every time a gun went off, Patricia jumped. Sam and Dr. Pavlov didn't even blink. 3 groups had already been in and out of the back room with Raphael. The 4th group was in there now. They weren't staying inside nearly as long as Sam wanted. When do you think he'll call us in? Patricia said. Sam shrugged. We're ready whenever he is. Patricia didn't know what he meant by this, but a few minutes earlier, Dr. Pavlov had wheeled him out back to use the outhouse. When they came back in, Sam had a small blanket over his lap. She was as nervous as she had ever been and hoped it didn't show. Finally, the door opened. Raphael came out smiling, clapping his two visitors on the back. He walked over to the long mahogany bar with them, got a beer, then walked over to their table. Mr. Nile, you all ready to come back into the back and have a Pavlier? Fine. Patricia and Dr. Pavlov started to get up. Our business is with you, Mr. Nile, not your medical staff. I can push you in. Then we're not going to do business, Sam said. I don't go anywhere without them. This is not just my medical staff. They are my partners. We have no secrets. Raphael looked at them a moment, then shrugged. Come on in. They're in, Neil said, waving to Smitty's to a stop. They were slowly working their way around the house. So far, they had not run into a single guard or any security. It seemed that everyone was down in Durango, which would suit their mission perfectly, provided that Joanne and Jack were being held somewhere on the vineyard and not Durango. They crouched behind the barn and listened to the conversation between Raphael, Asnar, and Mr. Nile. Chapter 48. It took Jack a long time to hobble his way up to the house. His ankle throbbed, sending stabs of shooting pain all the way up his neck, but he finally made it. He stood outside for several minutes trying to decide what to do. Diablo was gone, which meant that Raphael was at the Old West town. At least, Jack hoped he was there. His instinct told him to limp down to the airfield as fast as he could and climb aboard one of the jets while everyone was partying, but his conscience was telling him something else. He couldn't get over the image of Joanne waving goodbye behind her back as Snake Eyes led her out of the building. Even if it meant getting caught, he had to try and find her. He limped through the front door of the house. Zita was furious at Raphael. Using the girl to entertain the guests was insane. If Alonzo were here or even in touch, he would have never allowed it. She had written him a dozen emails and had gotten nothing in return. Something was seriously wrong, and this was another reason she was mad at Raphael. He didn't seem to care. She and the girl were across the street from the saloon at the dry goods store, going over the music she was to sing with Raphael's piano player. Zita had been demoted to translator, and this was the third thing she was angry about. You've rehearsed enough, Zita said. Let's get this over with. That was fine with Joanne. The sooner it was over, the sooner she could see Jack. She and the piano player followed Zita out of the store. Raphael took a seat behind the huge antique oak desk with a green blotter on top. The dim gaslights hissed behind him. What do y'all think of Durango? He asked. Impressive, Sam said. Raphael's eyes drifted over to Patricia, who was standing to the right of the wheelchair. Pavlov stood to the left. And how about you, Miss Glaze? It's like stepping back into... There was a loud pop. Raphael's chair slammed into the wall. His eyes went wide and began to convulse. Sam and Pavlov were up behind the desk in a flash. Sam slapped a gag over Raphael's mouth, tore the 2 taser probes from his chest, and slipped the 6 shooters out of his holsters. He then took a small digital camera out of his pocket and nodded at Dr. Pavlov. Pavlov pulled an odd-looking syringe out of his bag, pushed Raphael's head to the side, and injected him in the neck. Truth serum? Patricia asked. No, Sam said as he continued to take photographs. It's a heart attack pill. Lock the door, please. We don't want any unexpected guests. Confused, Patricia twisted the skeleton key in the old lock. When she turned back around, Dr. Pavlov was pointing at a small electronic instrument at his chest. It's in place, he said. Sam nodded. He pushed Raphael into the corner and pulled his chair up in front of him. He rearmed the stun gun and pointed it inches from Raphael's chest. Raphael had come to and was staring at Sam in defiant rage. His rage turned to horror when Sam started speaking in perfectly accented Spanish. Patricia did not understand what he was saying, but it was clear from Raphael's expression that it was terrifying him. Are you getting any of this? Smitty asked. He didn't speak Spanish. Neil held a finger to his lips. Sam was away from the wheelchair and was taking all of Neil's concentration to piece together the conversation. He had learned enough to know that he never wanted to get on the wrong side of Sam Sebastian and Dr. Igor Pavlov. What Sam was explaining to Raphael was as simple as it was diabolical. Jack was relieved to find the house deserted. He decided to start at the top and work his way down, checking every room. Raphael's bedroom took up almost half the top floor, and it was locked, but thanks to Snake Eyes, Jack had a key. He stepped into the walk-in closet and flipped on the light. It was filled with rack after rack of Western clothes, cowboy hats, and dozens of pairs of cowboy boots. Next to the closet was another door, locked. Jack opened it hopefully, but Joanne wasn't there. Inside were hundreds of antique weapons, Winchesters, Sharps, Colts. Some were displayed in glass cases, others hung on the wall. He took a Colt revolver down. It was heavy. He snapped open the cylinder. It was loaded. He slipped it under his belt and continued his search. Raphael was shaking now. Sam reached into his pocket and took out what looked like a small remote control, the kind used for automatically locking and unlocking a car. There was a single red button on it. Remove the gag, he said. Dr. Pavlov tore the duct tape away. Sam held the remote inches from Raphael's face, with his thumb poised over the red button. One chance, Raphael, he said in English. Tell me where the children are. Sweat poured down Raphael's face. The girl is here. I don't know where the boy is. Someone beyond the door had started singing. That's Joanne, Patricia cried. I recognize the voice, Sam said, then turned to Raphael. Let's go. He showed him the remote. If anything happens to her, you are dead. Raphael got up from the chair shakily. When Zita led Joanne into the saloon, no one paid any attention to her. They were too busy laughing, playing cards, and drinking. They certainly didn't look like drug dealers. She went over the order of the songs with the piano player. Ready? C. The piano player started to play and Joanne started to sing. At first, no one seemed to care. Then, one by one, people put their drinks down, stopped talking, and turned towards the piano. She was a third of the way through this first song when a door near the end of the bar burst open. A pretty woman with short black hair came out and stared at her. Joanne continued to sing. The woman started walking towards her. Halfway across the saloon, she started running towards her. Joanne stopped singing. The woman looked like Joanne dropped the microphone and stepped off the small stage. And my timer was going to go off, so I stopped it there. Now, where we are at page-wise, page 223, and the book ends on 246. When you join me next time, we're just going to go ahead and finish it. So, see you next time.